Hi, my name is Andrew Lee, and I'm going to try to get you started with Wikipedia in 20 minutes. Today, we're going to try to get you an account on Wikipedia and get you started with your first edits. Now, you can get to the notes that you see on the screen by going to the bit.ly link, bit.ly/Wikipedia in 20 in all lowercase. That's Wikipedia IN20. Now, one of the first things we want to do is to get an account set up, and this allows you to get more integrated into the community and lets you customize parts of the Wikipedia experience that give you some power features. So the first thing we want to do is to create an account. And if you actually click on the create an account button right there, you'll actually get to a screen. And we recommend that you enter in a meaningful username and password here, and also an email. So that's the only way to recover an account if you lose your password. So I'm just going to enter in a new password here. I'm sorry, using username and a password. And the first letter is going to be a capital letter. So just make sure you have that as a capital letter there. And I'm going to put in the password twice. And I'm not going to put an email right now, but you should put in an email. And we're going to enter in the CAPTCHA here. So say trip and say create your account. Oh, incorrect, missing CAPTCHA. Let's try that again. Account. All right, so there it is. Get started. There is my account. And hopefully you'll see here that I have the same front page of Wikipedia I'm used to, but I've got a bunch of different links at the top now. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this is the user page for yourself right here. We have the sandbox, which is a place where you can go in and edit and no one will bother you there at all. That's an experimental place. And then preferences. So what we really want to do is go to the preferences section and make some customizations here that'll make your experience so much better. So when we go in here, we're going to look at the preferences section right there and start to make some changes. So right here, I'm going to click on preferences. And there's a bunch of different settings here. We're going to go through 3 different areas. The first thing we're going to do is go to appearance and choose a way to display dates. Now, you probably don't want to see everything in UTC time. So what you can do is pull down this menu and choose fill in from browser. And then you're going to go ahead and hit the save button. And this will allow you to see times in your local time. The other thing we want to do, if you scroll down here, is to change the editing options right there. So we're going to go to editing. And under editing, we've got the editing mode here. And now we've got 2 different types of editors. One is a visual editor, which is much easier to use. So I recommend that. So we're going to go in here and choose always give me the visual editor if possible. We're going to go ahead and choose that and hit save. All right. And then for the beta section, we've got 2 new features that'll make your life a lot more easy here. If we go to beta features right here, you'll notice that we have a option for discussion tools. This will allow you to leave messages and enter into discussions much easier. So we click on discussion tools. And then down here, we have reference previews, which allows you to hover your mouse and see references. So we're going to hit preference previews, hit save. All right, so those are some of the basics. Now we're going to get a little bit more involved, and we've got some really powerful features here under what we call gadgets. So under gadgets, we have ways to show pop-ups as you put your mouse over them. We have ways to see extra features as well. So we're going to go ahead here and go to gadgets and going to browsing, editing, and appearance. So under here, we'll go to gadgets, and we're going to go to browsing. Now, there's a whole bunch of different checkboxes here, but what we're going to basically do here is check navigation pop-ups right there. Okay, so we choose navigation pop-ups. And then what other options we're going to choose? We're going to choose Hotcat. This is a way to add categories as you're editing. So we're going to go down here and say Hotcat, which is right there. Click on that box. And then we've got a few other things here. One is called More Menu under Appearance. And More Menu is going to give you so many more powerful features. We'll show you in a second. Click on More Menu. We are also going to turn on change UTC-based times and dates. This will allow you to see things in your local times right there. And then under X tools, this will give you for every page you visit some really neat stats that everyone should see. We're going to choose X tools. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things you can go through, but these are the basics. So hit save. All right, so now we have these things saved. Let's very quickly see what these have done to our interface. So if I click on main page Wikipedia, you should see all this new information here for every page that you visit in Wikipedia. You can even say see full page statistics, and this will bring up even more details about a statistic display of that page. So this is really kind of a power feature, and this is a great thing about having a login on Wikipedia. You get all that information. All right, so we'll experience some of those other things later on. Now, under fundamentals, let's go ahead and go over some of the fundamentals of editing Wikipedia. There's a lots of different policies and things that you can learn about Wikipedia. We're trying to boil it down to just a few things. Number one, you probably heard the moniker Wikipedia is the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit. And this has two meanings. One is you don't have to pay. You don't have to have a monthly fee or to pay to see Wikipedia. The other meaning of free is that you are free to copy, edit, redistribute, or even make money off of Wikipedia's content. So those are the two different meanings of free. And because of that, content contributed to Wikipedia must be under a free license. So if you're contributing to Wikipedia or trying to put information to Wikipedia, it has to be one of two things. One, it has to be either in the public domain, which means that no one owns the copyright. It's either old content or it's US government created content, and we're sure that there's no copyright owner for the content. And then the other thing is that if you are the owner of the copyright or it's copyrighted content, folks can release the content under what we call a Creative Commons license. The license that we use in Wikipedia is called the Creative Commons by SA, or the share-like attribution license. So that's what we would be doing for writing content into Wikipedia and contributing that. So make sure that you don't copy or paste written prose from sources on the internet, right? So copy pasting is no good. That is violating a copyright. But the facts in written content are not copyrighted. So a statistic that someone went to school at a certain place, that someone did something, that information itself is not copyrighted. So you can actually rewrite that content into Wikipedia. So as long as you're not copying, pasting, but you can paraphrase, rewrite, refactor that language. When we get to images, that's a whole other issue. But in addition to not copying and pasting text, you should not copy and paste images. And that's a whole nother lesson in itself on how to work with images. But that's the basics. So let's just get started into how we edit Wikipedia. So the easiest way is to just edit some private parts of Wikipedia to get your feet wet. The easiest way is to try the sandbox. And the sandbox is, again, the space where you don't have to worry about anyone complaining about what you're editing there. Now, something that you'll see in Wikipedia sometimes is red links. Red links signal missing content, and it's kind of prompting you to add information there. So we're going to go back to our account here, and you'll see that the sandbox that we have up here is a red link. So we're going to go ahead and click on that sandbox, and you'll notice that here it says, welcome to Wikipedia. You can either start editing, and because we set the visual editor in our preferences, we can just hit start editing, or you can switch to the source editor, which is more advanced and a little bit more tough to use. We're just going to hit start editing right here. All right. And you can see that Wikipedia does not have a user page with this exact title. So you're actually creating a new page. So we're going to go down here and say edit below this line. We're going to click in here, and you can do this along with me in your account that you just created. And we're just going to type in hello world like that, just as a test message. Now notice that you have these little things up here in the top of the screen that give you some ideas on how to link content or how to cite content. Right now, we're going to just create a basic page. We're going to go now to hit publish page right up here. And it's going to give you an opportunity to add what we call an edit summary. And this is going to give you an opportunity to show other folks what you've been editing. So this is a way to signal to other folks what you've been editing without having to look through every single edit. So I can say created page with hello world. Hit publish page. And there you are. This is the first page you've ever created on Wikipedia. Now this content here is automatically created, but the typed text that you have is right down here. So that's great. This is your first page. Now notice that the sandbox here is no longer red. Because you've created a page, it's no longer red. It's no longer missing. So that is a nice thing that we've just done, is to eliminate that red link. Another thing we can do is go to the talk page. This is completely optional. And you can go in here, and for the talk page, you can create source, as we say. That's a way to create the source file. Now, if you're ever in this mode where you're in this text editor here and it doesn't look like the visual editor, you can always pull down Oh, sorry. We're going to go ahead and start editing. I'm going to say, leave a message for me here. So this is just creating my talk page, and I'm going to go in here and say started talk page. I edit summary there. Okay, so notice that now I have a talk page. Leave a message for me here. I can go back to my home page. Okay, there's my home page. And then notice that talk and sandbox are now both blue. And this is kind of nice because for a new account, you'll often see there's a red link here and a red link there, but by having all these blue or purple, it looks like you're getting integrated into the community. This is a user page that the Wikipedia system has just made for me automatically, and it gives me some things that I could start doing right away, which is kind of cool, right? So this is nice. So this is just a starter page right there. So let's go ahead and go with some of our first tasks here. This is a summary of what we just did there. You can also go to the user page. Now, if we want to inspect what we just did, we can actually go to our sandbox right there. And this is the text we just added. And then we can actually say view history. And this gives you a log of every single edit that's been made to the page. And this is one of the nice things about Wikipedia is everything's inspectable. All right, so there's our first sets of edits there. If you want to see all your contributions across all pages in Wikipedia, you can always click on the contributions button up there and click on contributions. And you can see there's my first edit where I created the sandbox page and the second edit where I created the talk page. All right, so that gives you a way to look at every single edit you've ever made in Wikipedia. All right, so the major policies as we start to get into editing actual articles, there's a lot of different policies. The good thing to know is that there are no firm rules. They're all guidelines, but these are kind of the bedrock of our policies in Wikipedia. And we like to use acronyms a lot in Wikipedia, but they're not that hard. And I like to break them down to these 4 as the basics. Number 1 is what we call NPOV, or the neutral point of view. And if you've ever used Wikipedia, you can appreciate why it's so useful. And the reason why is because content is written in a way where all sides hopefully can agree, and an article covers the spectrum of reliably sourced views in the right proportions. So if you think about it, you're suddenly realizing why Wikipedia has kind of worked over the years is because you can go to any new topic that you don't know anything about and get a good balanced view of that topic. And that's due to the NPOV, or neutral point of view, kind of ethos that we have that resides over everything in Wikipedia. The other thing that's fundamental to Wikipedia is that we don't want original research, that we want accepted scholarship and factual information using citations and references. So again, the only way to get to NPOV, or neutral point of view, is through not incorporating original research, but proven research. And the way we do this is by using reliable sources, or RS, meaning we use scholarly writings, books, news sources, and avoid outlets known for bias, advocacy, or poor accuracy. Now, this is kind of a term of art than science, but the sources that are out there that are reliable, that's what we want in Wikipedia. And then finally, verifiability is the bedrock of all content in Wikipedia, which is why the references section for Wikipedia articles is so long, because we actually want people to show their work, to prove where they found information. Then finally, kind of as an extra policy here, just to figure out, does it belong in Wikipedia, we have a notability policy. What does Wikipedia encompass? Content that is covered in reputable sources and things that are known for more than just one event are what we want in Wikipedia, right? So we want a kind of a track record of being notable, or something that is, prominent in human history. Now, some other forms of policy that you should be aware of, that in general, we want people to be bold and just try things out, right? Don't be afraid of all the rules and different policies and the acronyms. Just try things out. In general, we are assuming good faith, right? We try to promote a friendly atmosphere by collaborating. Sometimes you might run into an editor that gets upset at something, but we have this overarching policy of assuming good faith. And then for folks who might be editing Wikipedia for the first time, or coming to it from the attitude of trying to improve content, you want to make sure that you declare any kinds of conflict of interest. Are you a compensated or paid editor is a big question in our community. If so, make sure you declare that. There is no ban on paid editing, but it's highly frowned upon unless you fully disclose your connections to any kind of compensation. And then I think finally, learn from existing content. Examine articles similar to what you're interested in editing. Observe the neutral tone, see what kind of references they use, and what things they don't do. So emulate those practices when adding new writings to Wikipedia. So some of the common starter tasks that we have in Wikipedia are copy editing. We have people who do nothing but just grammar checking, which is great. Checking for tone and neutral point of view and rewriting content to adhere to that. Adding wiki links to other articles. There's oftentimes people will write things but forget to link to other content in Wikipedia, which we absolutely want. Or adding references to articles. These are all really great starter tasks for folks. So we're going to start with one example here for an article that we've done at the Smithsonian called Letitia Jones. And this article has been built out pretty well. And you'll notice that here we have the lead section that we try to summarize the entire topic in 2 or 3 sentences, and then everything else is detail. Sometimes we call this the inverted pyramid style of writing. But I noticed a few things that we could improve here. So if we look back at our notes, we could fix some of the non-neutral text. So in the opening paragraph, it has something about how she has dedicated her career. That sounds more like a press release, so we might want to neutralize that. The other thing is that there's a link to some of the places she's worked at, but we don't have a link to them in Wikipedia. We can correct that. And then there's actually a claim in there that is unreferenced, but we found a link for that in a journal article. So we're going to correct those 3 things, and then we'll let you try editing these things yourself. So one thing we can do right away is look at this article. By turning on the options that we talked about before, we get to see some really nice information here. We get to find out when the article is created and how many revisions there have been. So anything where you have more than 20 or 30 revisions means that a number of people have added content, which is great. So we're going to go in here and notice here that says she has dedicated her career. So that sounds like public relations speak for a lot of folks in Wikipedia. So we're going to click on the edit button and try to correct that. So we're going to go in here. So we can say Jones has even just something as simply as spent her career to both studying neurological disorders. So that's just a very simple fix that suddenly neutralizes the language quite a bit, right? So we're going to say here, hit publish changes, and then we're going to add an edit summary, say change dedicated to spent for NPOV purposes, okay? So this is my edit summary, so no one has to really go into the text of the article, although they can, but this allows me to signal what I've changed. Hit publish changes. Oh, actually, I noticed a little typo there. We don't need the 2 anymore, right? So let's go back in there, hit edit. Jones has spent her career studying. Let's just say that. Okay, we can go back here and say copy, edit, extra word removed. It's a great example of how we can add another edit summary. And then we're done. So you notice that the lead paragraph now reads better. If I want to inspect my edits, I click on view history, and you can see right there, I've got my content that I've created right there. So there's me. Now notice my user page is red, but if I look up here, it's blue. Now that's kind of odd. That's just kind of a feature we give to new folks. So let's just go ahead and click on that and create a new page for myself. This is a way to kind of tell people about yourself. So I'm going to go in here and say, new editor showing new editing features, like that. Hit publish page. I can say adding new message to user page, publish page. Okay, and now I am the owner of a new user page. Now what happens is if I go back to my contributions right here, I can see there are my edits to Letitia Jones, and there is my new user page I created. So there's really nice to be able to inspect all your contributions right there. Now, 2 last edits before our 20 minutes are up. We're going to go in and create a wiki link for Children's Hospital. So let's go back to her article. I'm going to go to Letitia Jones right here, and I go down here, and I notice that Children's National Hospital right there is not linked to. Maybe people may not know what that is or may want to find out. I click on edit. I can now choose Children's National Hospital right there. Now notice that it gives me 2 blue links. I'm going to click on the chain button right there, and it's going to give me a link option. And I'm going to see right here, Wikipedia is really smart. It says, oh, I have an article about Children's National Hospital. I'm going to create that link, and notice that it's blue. Now I'm going to choose publish changes, add link to Children's National That's it. Publish changes. And there we are. We now have a link right there. And the last thing I'm going to do is there's an unreferenced sentence that I'd like to add a reference to. So let's go back here and see that Jones' research resulted in the generation of an antibody capable of detecting the mutant peptide. And I'd like to make sure there's a number at the end. That's a reference, right? Everything else is really well referenced, but this one is not. So I happen to find a nice reference in a journal article, and you can see right here. This is the journal article. And what I can do is copy the URL. So this is the journal article. It's got Letitia Jones. Now, the great thing about this is Wikipedia can automatically create a reference for us, because if I go in here and choose the edit button right there, I'm editing the article, right? You'll notice that there's extra functions there. I can put my pointer at the end of that sentence, and I click on the cite button right there. I click on cite, and it says automatic, hey, put a URL in there, and I'll try to do my best to get the right fields. So I click on generate after I paste in that link, and it's going out to the website. It's crunching that data. Hopefully it'll come back with a reference. Ah, look at that. That's great. So you'll see that this is the most basic information. I could actually go in and improve it later, but let's go ahead and just use the basic information, hit insert, and you'll notice that now a reference has been added, number 8 right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit publish changes and say add reference for last sentence. Publish changes. Ah, looks like I'm editing so quickly, they're not trusting me. So I'm going to go ahead and say, here we go. Publish changes. And there we are. So notice that now we do have this number 8 now at the end. If I click on 8, you will see it jumps down here and gives me that reference, which we just added. So there we are, 3 very simple edits very quickly. And that means in 20 minutes, you can get up to speed on editing Wikipedia very quickly. So if you're interested in doing this, go to the document that I have on screen. That's bit.ly/Wikipedia in 20, all lowercase. And that is just a very quick guide to Wikipedia editing. And I hope you'll pick up the mouse and keyboard and keep editing Wikipedia. Thanks a lot.